Let's do a quick recap of what we had discussed. We're discussing the series of those 18 days where we're focusing on the Mahabharata war, and we're going to focus on some key incidents in the war, and then from there we are going to analyze the characters and see what we can learn from them while also addressing some controversial aspects of their actions. So we're focusing right now on the actions of Bhishma. And the first 8 days of the war was a seesaw affair, where initially the Kauravas got the upper hand and the Pandavas got the upper hand. And on the 8th day, the Duryodhan received a severe battery from both Bhima and his son Gachibowli. And then he incited Bhishma. And Bhishma said that I will kill the 5 Pandavas with the 5 arrows. But then Arjuna, at Krishna's request, went and took those arrows from Duryodhan. And then Bhishma said that I will kill Arjuna today unless Krishna intervenes. And then Bhishma was fighting with great vigor, because he was eager to see how Krishna will intervene to protect Arjuna. On the other hand, Arjuna was fighting half-heartedly because he just didn't have the heart to kill his grandfather. And so then Krishna miraculously intervened. And Krishna took up a chakra, similar to his Sudarshan chakra, but it's an ordinary chakra, and charged toward Bhishma. And Arjuna had to run and catch Krishna by the leg and dig his heels into the ground to stop Krishna. And he promised, I will kill Bhishma. Please don't break your words for my sake. And at that time, Krishna, while charging toward Bhishma, held Bhishma responsible. You didn't stop Dhritarashtra, so you are the cause of this war. And this was the point where the 9th day's war almost ended. The sun was nearly setting, and this was such a stunning incident to have happened that nobody wanted to fight after that. Wanted to take in what happened. So we stopped at this particular point and we discussed how, in the case of Bhishma, we discussed this whole graph, 4 quadrants, that there is on one side virtue or dharma, the other side that is bhakti. So Bhishma already had bhakti. However, dharma is complicated in this way. Dharma is the right thing to do. So for him, especially his silence during the dishonoring of Draupadi, that was certainly an act where he did something questionable, seriously questionable. So we discussed how somebody like Arjuna was always having dharma and bhakti both. Duryodhana had neither. He was against Krishna and he was against dharma also. Now we talked about how Bhishma was dharmic, but then he knew dharma, but he acted in some adharmic way also. And toward the end, he was redeemed. Now, as contrasted with that, we'll see how Karna had dharma, he never had bhakti, but by the association of Duryodhan, he went down away from dharma also to some extent. So at the end of the 9th day, Arjuna had taken a vow that I will kill Bhishma. And yet they knew that just Arjuna's determination was not going to be enough. That Bhishma was not going to be easy to kill. So before the Kurukshetra war had started, there had been multiple pauses. One well-known pause was when Arjuna felt undecided. And at that time, Krishna spoke the Bhagavad Gita. The other was when Yudhishthira got off his chariot. Arjuna, in one sense, got his chariot into the middle with Krishna. But Yudhishthira got off his chariot and went into the middle. Not only went into the middle, he kept walking to the other side. So the Kaurava started mocking him. Oh, he's become scared seeing our army. But Yudhishthira went the elders, Bhishma, Drona, Kripa and Shalya, and he sought their blessings. He said, before this war happens, I want to take your blessings. And they're all very pleased. Bhishma and Drona, they were nearby and he said that, that they said that we knew you were a virtuous person, expected that you would come for blessings. So, but then, along with asking for blessings, he had to ask, I seek your blessing so that I can win, and for winning, I want to ask you, how can I defeat you? So, each of them gave an enigmatic answer. So Bhishma said, the time for my defeat has not yet come. Come to me at a later time and I'll tell you. Drona said that when I hear some disagreeable, I cannot be defeated. When I hear some disagreeable news from some trustworthy source, at that time I will myself give up fighting. And then you will be able to defeat me. Kripa said that I cannot be defeated. Knowing this, go and attain victory. So what he meant by that, Kripacharya personally couldn't be defeated, but he did not acquire knowledge of celestial weapons. So he could not personally be defeated, but he was not a great threat to the opposing side. Kripacharya was one of the survivors at the end of the war also. And Shalya said that I had come to fight on your side. He said that I had come, but I was tricked by Duryodhana. So he said, I will work for your victory. I'll pray for your victory. So later on, Shalya will help Duryodhana, help the Pandavas by when he was Karna's charioteer. We'll talk about that later. So anyway, at this time, on the 9th evening, Krishna reminds Yudhishthira of the words of Bhishma. And he says, now it is the time for you to go and ask him, the grandsire, about how he can be killed. So Yudhishthira and Arjuna go with a heavy heart. And among the 5 Pandavas, Yudhishthira had been the eldest, Arjuna was the middle. So Yudhishthira had the clearest memories of Pandu. Arjuna and Nakula and Sahadev, they were so small they did not have very clear memories of Pandu. So Arjuna was going with Krishna and Arjuna was saying that, when I would come after plague, I would jump on the lap of Bhishma and I would play with his beard and my feet would be dusty and I would soil his clothes and I would say, Father, Father. And Bhishma would ruffle my hair and he say, child, I'm not your father, I'm your father's father. He said, how can I possibly kill someone like that? How can I ask him how I can kill him? So Krishna consoles Arjuna and says, the duty of a Kshatriya is a hard duty. You have made your vow and the grandsire, however venerable he is, has made his choice. And then Yudhishthira and Arjuna and the Pandavas go before Bhishma and they offer their respects. And then with a heavy heart, Yudhishthira asks, Bhishma, you had told me to come at a later time. And Bhishma is grave. He says, yes. He says, I cannot be defeated. But I have taken a vow that I as a warrior will never attack a woman. Which is, of course, warriors are never meant to attack women. But he said, I will never attack anyone who was a woman previously. And you have in your ranks someone who was a woman previously. So that is Shikhandi. So he said, you bring Shikhandi in front and if he is in front of Arjuna, then I will not shoot him. Now, when this goes back, this particular vow might seem to be a strange vow. And when Dhritarashtra hears this, Sanjay narrating what has happened, he says, how can it be the duty of the grandfather of Bhishma to tell, his uncle, not his grandfather, he said, how can it be the duty of Bhishma to tell others how to kill him? Why has he done this? So now, long ago, although Bhishma had chosen a vow of celibacy, it's a very distinct situation. He was a celibate. Normally, those who take brahmacharya, they distance themselves from the family. So it was like he was a celibate who took more responsibility for his family than everyone else in the family. So what happened was he never married, but he had to arrange for the marriages of everyone else. It's not an easy thing to do. So he had got brides for those who were his stepbrothers. Chitrangada was killed earlier. Vichitravirya. He wanted to get brides for him. And then there's a Swayamvar, and he went to Amba, Ambika and Ambalika he got. So at that time, he defeated the king in the Swayamvar and he got all three of them. Now, at that time, polygamy was common. In this particular case, he was especially anxious because Chitrangada had been killed and Vichitravirya was also a bit of a sickly person. So he wanted to make sure that there would be successors for the kingdom. So he got all three of them. In terms of the Swayamvar, it was a contest of arms and he won fair and square. But what had happened was Amba, she had given her heart to Shalya. And she had planned, she had expected that nobody except Shalya would actually be able to win the contest. Because Bhishma was a celibate and nobody expected him to come and compete over it. So she had a plan, like a secret arrangement. But then Bhishma's arrival had disrupted. Bhishma was just so powerful that even Shalya was defeated by him. And then she confessed her heart. And then Bhishma said, I didn't know about this. He said, if that is where you want to go, then he arranged for her to go to Shalya. And Shalya said that, publicly you have been taken by Bhishma. I cannot accept it. And Shalya said, but I didn't go by my own will. So he said, I cannot do this now. So she was left abandoned. And she decided to go back to Bhishma. I cannot go back to my father, my family, I'll be disgraced over there. So she went to Bhishma and she insisted that Bhishma had put her in this predicament, so Bhishma should marry. Bhishma said, I have chosen a vow of celibacy, I cannot marry. So then she tried various things. Ultimately she pressured or requested Parshuram. And Parshuram tried to insist, and Parshuram and Bhishma even had a fight. But Bhishma was more than equal to his guru. And then Parshuram finally said to Amba, I have tried what I can and I can't do anything. So at that time, Amba, she performed austerities and she entered into a river and ended her life. So she decided that I will come back again for the destruction of Bhishma. He has ruined my life. Now in this particular case, there are situations which we can say there are unfortunate situations and there are intentionally caused situations. So there is an atrocity which is done by someone intentionally, and there is adversity that comes upon people. So what happened to Amba was tragic. Was it atrocity or was it adversity? Adversity. So Bhishma had no intention to ruin her life. Bhishma, the Kuru kingdom was one of the most powerful kingdoms, if not the most powerful kingdom. And for her to become a princess in the Kuru kingdom would have been honorable for her, would have been glorious for her. But however, the things worked out in a particular way. And then she held Bhishma responsible. So now Bhishma, on his part, he was always fixed on his vow. His vow that I will remain celibate, his vow that I will always protect the Kuru kingdom. So, but at the same time, one part of him also felt bad. What happened to Amba? He was not ready to give up his vow of celibacy for her sake, but he also felt that what happened to her was bad. And he knew he had played a part in it, unintentionally, but he had played a part in it. So this, knowing that Amba had come back as Shikhandi, that he is not shooting arrows at Shikhandi, was his way of making up or atoning for what had been done to Amba in the previous life. So, otherwise, if you take it as a generic thing, then how do you know who was a woman in the previous life? How many of the warriors might have been women in the previous life, isn't it? So, this particular, among the various idiosyncratic conditions that are there of different warriors over there, each person has their own personality. And I'm using idiosyncrasy not in a negative sense. It's just an unusual, peculiar kind of behavior that everyone had. So Bhishma, he knew Shikhandi was on the opposite side. So, and that Shikhandi would eventually fight. So now he said that if you keep Shikhandi ahead and Arjuna shoots arrows from behind, then I will not attack Arjuna. So now this was not what Arjuna wanted at all. First of all, he did not want to attack Bhishma. And on top of that, he did not want to win over Bhishma in what would definitely be a questionable way. So now, is this ethical? Is this unethical? Well, at one level you can say clearly, it's not a fair fight. It's not Arjuna's victory over Bhishma was not a fair and square victory when he would get it. Of course, Arjuna had defeated Bhishma earlier in the Virat War. So Arjuna was a warrior who could do it. But like I mentioned, when the Virat War was going on, Arjuna had no intention to kill anyone. He just wanted to give a demonstration of his power by which hopefully the Kauravas would later settle for a peaceful solution. Now the next day when the war began, this news that the Pandavas had gone to meet Bhishma and Bhishma had told this could not be hidden. So Duryodhana came to know about it. And Duryodhana was alarmed, he was angered, and he said that we will do everything possible to make sure that Shikhandi doesn't get anywhere near Bhishma. We have to protect Bhishma. The Duryodhana and Bhishma had an unusual relationship. In the sense that, it's, as I mentioned earlier, Bhishma always had the hope that Duryodhana would, if not change his ways, at least not be as bad as he was turning out to be. And while Duryodhana knew that Bhishma had affection for the Pandavas, but he still had respect. And he still had a certain amount of trust in Bhishma. And he of course knew that Bhishma was a mighty warrior, and that's why he had made him the commander of his army. So Duryodhana arranged the Kaurava army to try to protect Bhishma. The Pandavas strategically targeted Bhishma. And with Shikhandi, so normally Arjuna, Drishtadyumna, they would be the center of the army at the attack. In this case it was Shikhandi. And the next day's war began. And again the Pandavas tried to come closer to Bhishma, and Bhishma was engaging. Bhishma couldn't be just hemmed in and kept safe at one place. Bhishma was fighting, but Duryodhana, through his allies and supporters, was making sure that Bhishma was not coming anywhere close to Shikhandi. But then finally, Arjuna decided to take matters in his own hands. So letting Shikhandi lead the attack, Arjuna led the attack. And Arjuna broke through. Dushasana was at the front. He had been stopping Shikhandi repeatedly. But then Arjuna just destroyed the Kaurava defenses. And then he charged forward. And then Arjuna and Bhishma had one final furious fight. And it just went on and on and on. Neither was getting the upper hand. And Arjuna, although he knew what had to be done, he didn't have the heart to do it. He just kept fighting. And Now Krishna knew the turmoil in Arjuna's heart. At the same time, Krishna knew what had to be done. So in some ways, in the Kurukshetra war, there are many occasions when Arjuna becomes soft-hearted. But it is Krishna who has to remain cool-headed. So there is a difference between being cool and being cold. The cool is more of, you could say, even-headed, or you can say cool-headed. One is not getting sentimental, one is not getting emotional, one is not getting carried away by emotions. So one has to be even-headed, not get caught buffeted by emotions. But cold is not even-headed; it is hard-hearted. It is stone-hearted. So now, some of the statements that Krishna makes over here, they can seem very cold. But actually, because Arjuna is becoming carried away by sentiments, so Krishna has to bring him back to the ground. So Krishna tells Arjuna, you know what you have to do today. Arjuna just doesn't want to accept, but he also recognizes he cannot win against Krishna. So they are debating, and now Shikhandi has had enough. So Shikhandi charges forward. And a slight abating in the fighting between Bhishma and Arjuna, and Shikhandi charges forward. And Shikhandi starts shooting arrows. And the Shikhandi's arrows come forward, but when Bhishma is ready to fight, but as soon as he sees Shikhandi, he turns away. And he starts attacking other people. And Shikhandi's arrows are coming and hitting Bhishma and Arjuna. And Bhishma keeps shooting. Now Bhishma's charioteer is trying to dodge and get away. But Shikhandi is like a dogged in pursuit. And then, although Shikhandi's arrows are hitting Bhishma, and Dushasana comes up and he sees that Bhishma is pierced by arrows. And Bhishma says, do not worry. He says, by the impact of the arrows, I know who is shooting them. He says, Shikhandi's arrows are like flower petals hitting me. Now, and he speaks this in the hearing of Shikhandi. And Shikhandi, it is one thing to shoot the target, but it's another thing how much force you are hitting the target. See, if we use guns, when you're shooting with guns, we don't have to apply much force. The force is created by the mechanical device. And in arrows, the individual has to create the force. So, now Shikhandi is a warrior, but he is no match to Arjuna. And then Shikhandi is shooting and shooting. The arrows are hitting, and Bhishma is not dodging, but Bhishma keeps attacking. And then Krishna tells Arjuna, this is your opportunity. And Arjuna steels himself. He spies on the duty of Kshatriya. And then he starts shooting. He starts shooting one after another arrow. The arrows start piercing into Bhishma's body. And then again Dushasana comes close by. Dushasana tries to intervene. And then Bhishma tells Dushasana that the arrows from Shikhandi are like flower petals, but the arrows from Arjuna are like thunderbolts. They are piercing my body. And he keeps fighting. And now on one side, while Shikhandi is fighting, Shikhandi is so busy in fighting that shooting that initially Shikhandi sees the arrows are having no effect, and he starts seeing that Bhishma is wincing and Bhishma is being hit. And he thinks that it is his arrows. And then he sees arrows whizzing by from behind him. And then he realizes that although this is going to be his victory, it is not going to be his victory. He's going to get the ends, but it is not he who is going to be the cause of the end of Bhishma. And Bhishma keeps fighting with other soldiers and targeting other warriors. He's relentlessly fighting. But the sheer impact of arrow after arrow that is embedding into his body. Generally, in an arrow fight, in a bow fight, basically warriors do one of three things. One is that their armor If it's strong enough to bear the arrows, then they let the arrows hit them while they are trying to hit the enemy. The second is that the charioteer moves the chariot so that they can dodge the arrows. And the third is they try to counter the arrows of the opponent. So the two arrows hit in midair each other. And in the case of Bhishma, Bhishma is not countering and his armor has long broken. And his chariot is doing his best to dodge. But the arrows from Arjuna are coming. Because he is not being challenged, because Shikhandi being challenged. So the arrows just keep coming one after another after another. And Bhishma, throughout his life, has never ever been defeated. And although there's so many arrows piercing his body, still, eventually when Bhishma is on his chariot, he falls off his chariot. And he falls off his chariot and he lands on the ground, but the arrows are pierced through his body and so many arrows have gone through. Bhishma's body is also very, very powerful. So the arrows get stuck in his body, they don't come out fully. And then he falls on a bed of arrows. And when the news spreads in the Kaurava camp, Bhishma has fallen. Drona faints in shock. Duryodhana breaks down into tears. And when Bhishma falls, everyone stops fighting. Everyone gets down from the chariot. And they approach Bhishma. And Duryodhana, he sorrowfully, with tears in his eyes, goes before Bhishma. And he feels that he has been the cause of this plight of his grandfather. He immediately calls physicians and to treat this grandfather. Bhishma waves them away. He says, I have no longer any need for these. And then Arjuna comes over to him and says, Oh Partha. Now what has happened is that while Arjuna has shot many arrows, Arjuna has not had the heart to shoot arrows at Bhishma's head. All his body he has shot, but he has not had the heart to shoot at Bhishma's head. So he says, Oh Partha, just see how my head is hanging. There are arrows all over his body, but his head is hanging. So Arjuna shoots an arrow into the earth and then it comes out. And then that set of arrows becomes the support for Bhishma under his head. And then he says, I'm thirsty. So then Duryodhana is about to get some water. And Arjuna shoots an arrow. And then he invokes the Ganges to come. Now Ganga is his mother. And when he sees his mother, he holds his hand and offers her respect. And the Ganga flows in. And in this last moments also, it is clear that in serving the grandfather, although Arjuna had caused the fall of his grandfather, his service attitude was still there. And then, seeing Duryodhana so remorseful, so tearful, Bhishma makes one last attempt. He tells Duryodhana, Oh child, oh prince, you have seen that I who was never defeated have been defeated by the Pandavas. I have been telling you that the Pandavas are undefeatable. Let this be the evidence that you finally accept. With my fall, let all the hostilities end. Divide the kingdom equally and live in peace. Duryodhana doesn't have the heart to say no. He has no intention of saying yes. So he just remains silent. And Bhishma is looking at him with hopeful eyes. But some hopes, they're just never to be fulfilled. And then they arrange for guards to be there around Bhishma. And then that part of the battlefield where Bhishma has fallen, after that no war happens in that area. The next morning Karna comes and Karna joins the army. So we will talk about Karna later more, but Karna comes and meets Bhishma. So basically for everyone it is clear that Bhishma is going to die sooner or later. Bhishma has Ichha Mrityu, so he chooses not to die at this particular time. So, in one sense, he could have ended his life long ago when Draupadi was being dishonored, when the Pandavas were being abused. He could have chosen, I don't want to live to see all this. But his hope and his faith was that ultimately virtue would be victorious, the Pandavas would be protected. So he wanted to live to see that. He wanted that the Kuru kingdom be protected. Be not just protected from enemies, from outside, but be in safe hands. That was the promise that he had made to his father. And he wanted to make sure that comes true. So both from material perspective of the promise that he has made, from the devotional perspective that he wanted to see Krishna's plan reach its fructification. So he held on to his life. And Krishna blessed Bhishma. Krishna said that although so many arrows are piercing you, I bless you so that you will not feel any pain. You will rise above the consciousness of the body. And then Bhishma stayed on day after day. And finally, after the war got over, then Yudhishthir, he suffered more and more as the war went on. Now, generally, see, among the Pandavas, Yudhishthir, all the Pandavas are Kshatriyas, but Yudhishthir is the most Brahmana kind of Kshatriya. He wants to resolve things as peacefully as possible. Bhima is the most Kshatriya Kshatriya. He is what you can say Kshatriya squared. So Arjuna is often in between, he has to balance both of them. If Yudhishthira is too inactive, he has to push Yudhishthira to take action. And he has to stop Bhima from taking action. But eventually when the war ends, Yudhishthira is burdened by guilt. He feels that in English there is a phrase called Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic victory means what? That the cost of the war is so much that what you gain is far less than what you lose. So the Pandavas lose all their sons. Irvan is the first one to be killed. Then Abhimanyu is killed. Then just when the war seems to have been won, then all their sons are killed by Bhishma Command. So Yudhishthira feels, what did I fight this war for? What did I get out of this? And then the final straw for him is when Kunti tells him that Karna was your elder brother. He said, I lived in constant fear that Karna would kill Arjuna. And I had so much negative emotion towards Karna. And all along, he said that he was my brother. And then Kunti tells him that he knew he was your brother. There are two occasions when Karna could have killed Yudhishthira. And he does not kill Yudhishthira. Kunti tells him that he had given me a word. And Yudhishthira feels, what kind of brute am I? I was wishing constantly the death of the person who was my brother and who could have killed me but who didn't kill me. So he feels so utterly culpable. He says, I cannot be the king. And everybody tries to persuade him. Nobody succeeds. And that day, even Krishna tries, Vyasdev tries, the Pandavas try. But then finally, Krishna says, you have to go to Bhishma. Among every one of the deaths, we'll talk about Yudhishthira's remorse when we come to the end. But Yudhishthira is the king. And a king is not just meant to sit on a high seat and take service and credit for everything. A king is meant to feel responsible for everything. So for each of the major deaths on his side, he feels responsible. And so he just feels, I cannot become the king. Okay, is this better? Should I increase the volume?
Can.
Hare Krishna. Okay. Hare Hare Krishna. So, is this better now or no?
Yeah.
Yes, still not so good. Okay, is this better now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
So, please don't hesitate to tell. That if you're not able to hear, unless of course you don't want to hear. So now what does Bhishma speak when Yudhishthira finally comes? In one sense, Krishna's move of telling Yudhishthira to go to Bhishma, it seems to be completely counterintuitive. Like on one side, Yudhishthira is burdened by guilt and he has to go to a person who is like a living demonstration of his guilt. Isn't it? His own grandfather is lying on a bed of arrows. He has to go to him. But Krishna has confidence in Bhishma. And Bhishma also understands what Yudhishthira is going through. And when Bhishma sees Yudhishthira, what he speaks is amazing. See, normally, if we go to the hospital to see someone who is having, say, terminal cancer, and they're in a lot of pain and they're about to die, and then we are concerned about their condition. How much pain are you? Can I do something for you? But the first thing that Bhishma says as soon as he sees Yudhishthira, Aho Krishna Mahamanyayam Yadyuyam Dharmanandana. He says that how much suffering you suffered, how much adversity and atrocity you went through. He said, and although, see, you may suffer, but Vipra Dharma Achyutashraya, you were always virtuous. Everybody suffers in life, but when good people suffer, the feeling that it is unfair, that causes more suffering sometimes than the suffering itself. The suffering is there, but the feeling that I don't deserve this, that hurts often more. So, now Yudhishthira is feeling that, I cause so much pain to others. But what does Bhishma do? He completely turns the whole thing around. He says, how much suffering you had to go through. So one underlying theme in the Bhagavatam, so this is where in some ways the narrative of the Mahabharata and the narrative of the Bhagavatam, in their focus they are different. The Bhagavatam's focus is more on how there are two realities. The world will be unfair. Or rather, you could say life in the world. Life in the world will be unfair to everyone. But beyond that, the Lord is fair. The Lord has a plan, and that plan works out for the good of everyone. So Bhishma, he says that what can explain your suffering? You were not weak. You had Bhima who was Gadapani. You had Arjuna who had Gandhivadhari. You had even Krishna with you. And still you suffered. So he analyzes various reasons. And finally he says, oh Yudhishthira, that the cause of suffering is not determinate. So this is a very profound teaching. Sometimes each one of us, based on how we are growing or how we have grown up, what experiences we have had, when we suffer, sometimes we may blame this person is causing me so much trouble. Sometimes we may blame ourselves, oh, I'm such a terrible person. Sometimes we will blame fate, sometimes we will blame God. So we will keep coming back to this theme later. But in life, there is when we are talking with suffering and dealing with suffering. In that suffering, there is the cause of the suffering and there is the cure for the suffering. And sometimes the cause is known and the cure is known. Sometimes the cause is unknown and sometimes the cure is unknown. So what happens is the human mind just doesn't accept that I don't know, or worse still, I can't know. Now we could say if we know the cause and the cure, that is the best situation to be. And this is the problem and this is the solution, let's solve the problem. But sometimes we don't know, but we don't want to accept that we don't know. So we don't want to accept that we don't know. And that's why we ascribe some cause. But this thing is causing the problem. This person is causing the problem. So it's significant that sometimes when we as devotees start growing up in our life, we hear about the philosophy of karma and then we use karma as an explanation for everything. But it is, we have to be very, very careful. Recently a few months ago, there was horrible rape in Kolkata where the woman was very abused, and then this question came up, what was her karma? So this. So my understanding is, where do you see in scripture when someone is suffering, others bring up that person's karma? When Draupadi was being dishonored, does anyone say what was her karma because of this? See, the cause can be karma, but ultimately, gahana karma. We don't know what is the exact cause. And the cure actually is dharma. Dharma is doing the right thing, doing our duty. And ultimately, it is paradharma, that is bhakti. So we are meant to be dharma conscious, not karma conscious. That means when someone is suffering, we focus on what can I do to deal with this suffering. We don't focus on what is, this person is suffering, he must have done some bad karma. If we start having that attitude, we end up becoming very heartless. Now, where do we stop? If a mother has a newborn baby and the baby is crying, should the mother think that, the baby is crying because of her past karma? If I pacify the baby, I am interfering with her past karma. By thinking like this, we are interfering with our present dharma. So we are meant to be dharma conscious. See, that karma is true. The point is not that the law of karma is not there, but to ascribe specific suffering to karma, that is something which is beyond our capacity to know. So, not only in this particular pastime, where Bhishma says the cause of suffering is unknowable, but the same thing comes up later when Dharma and Parikshit are having a discussion. And Parikshit asks Dharma, what is the cause of your suffering? Now, if you look at that particular conversation, it's like the question itself is, what is the cause of your suffering? Now, the question seems absurd. Why? Because Parikshit saw Kali beating the cow and the bull. And the bull is injured. Now the answer seems absurd square. Why? Because he says that Vakya Veda Vimohita. He says different philosophers have different ideas of what is the cause of suffering. And thinking of all these causes, I don't know. And then after that, he mentions karma and daiva. Some people say it is because of how it is the nature of the world. Some people say it is karma. Some people say it is daiva. Some people say it is moha. That you are the body, you are the soul, and you are attached to the body, and that's why you are suffering. So now all of these have some validity. But ultimately, specific suffering we cannot ascribe to a cause. If some guest comes to our house, and the guest says, I am feeling very cold. He said, Prabhu, what to do in this world is dukkha. I don't know about the world, but your home is dukkha. So now, if they are feeling cold, maybe it is because of the past. We don't know. But our focus should be, what is my present dharma? Isn't it? You are a guest in my home, I should try to make you as comfortable as possible. So we are meant to be dharma conscious, not karma conscious. So now, as far as possible, we can try to find the cause. But so the answer is, he says, I don't know the cause. And finally, he says that the word he uses is very striking. Let's see if I can find this. Yeah. He says, Apratarkya aniridishya iti keshvapi nishchaya. Just in the Bhagavatam, many times, the speakers, they say, some people say this, some people say this, some people say this. Like in Kunti's prayers, why do you descend, O Lord? Some people say you come to protect the king, some people say you come to remove the burden of the earth, some people say that you come to destroy the evil kings. And then the final statement that comes, that is the statement where it's the speaker's opinion is given. So Kunti says, you come ultimately to free people from the bondage, the ignorance of material existence. Bhavesmin klishyamanana avidyam kamakaranya shravan smaranarani karishyami kechana. So like that, when he speaks over here, Dharma speaks, the last thing he says, cause of suffering is unknowable. So, apratarkyat anirdeshyat iti keshva apinishchaya. Some have asserted that apratarkyat, that means we cannot do tarka about the cause of suffering. Suffering, anirdeshyat, we can even point out the cause. Yes, you have to accept that this is suffering in this world. Atra nurupam rajarishe. So he said, oh, you are a rajarishe. You nrishya swamanishaya. You deliberate on this and then you act. And now if you see, the response to this is the Rajavacha Dharmam Bravishi Dharmagya Dharmosi Vrisharupadrak. So he's using the word dharma 3 times. He says, what you have spoken is dharma, you are clearly the knower of dharma, in fact you are dharma in the form of a bull. And then the last part he says seems to be the most, let's say, absurd cube. What does he say over here? Yet adharma krita sthanam suchakasyapi tat bhavet. That he says, one who points to a wrongdoer gets the same destination as the wrongdoer. See, what does that mean? If somebody has robbed a bank and he says this person robbed the bank, okay, both the robber and the pointer both are going to jail. Well, that seems absurd. How does that work out? Are you not meant to point out? No, that is not the principle. Now, if you see in the context, the king Parikshit does take strong action against Kali. He banishes Kali from his kingdom except for a few places. Now, does he do the same to the bull? No. So, he is talking here at a philosophical level. See, when somebody hurts us, they are doing it out of ignorance. And when we fixate on that, you are the cause of all my suffering, then we are also acting in a similar ignorant consciousness. And in that sense, both of us will stay in the ignorance of the material world. Of course, one person by their karma may be in a better destination, another person by their karma may be in a worse destination. But ultimately, the material world is a place of ignorance. So that is the point being made over here. So why we are talking about all this is that here the response of Parikshit Maharaj can seem absurd cube. But it is not. It is that when we are trying to find the cause of suffering, if we fixate on one particular cause, quite often the result of that is our consciousness gets consumed by that. We start hating that person, we start hating that situation, and then that entangles us in the material world. Now that does not mean if this thing is dealt with, all my problems will be solved. No, we may have to deal with that thing. Krishna tells Arjuna to fight against the Kauravas. But Krishna tells that don't fight for revenge. Fight for establishing dharma in the world. Fight for assisting dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So, if we can know the cause and we can know the cure, that is good. And to the extent we can find the cause, we should try to find the cause. But sometimes we just can't find the cause. So sometimes our child is crying, we comfort the child and the child becomes peaceful. We try to comfort the child and still the child keeps crying. We go to a doctor and the doctor gives some medicine, still the child keeps crying. Then at that time we understand something more is going on. We're trying our best, but something is not working over here. So sometimes then some bigger causes may come in and we try to figure it out. So in general, we can try to find the cause, but sometimes in our eagerness to find a cause, we fixate on a particular cause. And then we become more conscious of the problem. Now, this person did this to me. And we start hating that person. And then that becomes very unhealthy. So in this case, in most people, they will fixate on someone outside themselves. You know that you cause all my suffering. In the case of Yudhishthir, he's fixating on himself. He says, I am the cause of all this suffering. I have caused suffering to everyone. So, in medicine, there is a whole category of diseases which are called as idiopathic diseases. Idiopathic means nothing to do with idiots. But it is basically diseases for which the cause is not known. That just don't know. Sometimes some kinds of say arthritis and very few diseases like some cancers are also said to be idiopathic. So sometimes we just don't know the cause. But we know, okay, this is what is going on over here and this is what we can do to treat it. So in many ways, the broad Vedic philosophy, at least the Bhakti worldview, is that suffering in this world is like an idiopathic disease. We can't know what is the cause. And our focus should not be so much on what is the cause as what is the cure. Like what can we do about it? Now, we may say that how can we find the cure without finding the cause? Well, sometimes that's what we have to do. Many of you know that in Los Angeles there is a terrible fire going on. Slowly it's now subsiding. It's one of the most prosperous parts of America. Most beautiful part is California. There, it's like apocalypse. It's a horrible scene. So I have some friends who are there. The Palisades is a place where I have also done programs. It's terrible. So now I have a friend over there, American, who's a firefighter. So I was talking with him recently. So he was telling me that when we are called to site of a fire, the first thing we want to know is what caused the fire. If some explosives are involved, if some electrical devices are involved, electricity is involved, then we want to know that so that we can deal with it. But many times, we just can't know. There is no one to tell. And even if people who call us, they also don't know. So then, at that time, what can we do? We just have to see, okay, this fire is here, it's spreading like this. There are civilians over here, there is some inflammable material over here. We have to make sure the fire doesn't go there. So sometimes things make sense. That means, things make sense means, okay, this happened like this happened. So if we can make sense of things, that's good. But even if things don't make sense, it is we make sense. We make sense means we do the sensible thing at that time. Okay, the fire has come now. I don't know what caused the fire. But what is the sensible thing to do? Don't just watch it. Okay, can you fight the fire? So in many ways, samsara davanal viloka. So in the prayers, the Mangalarati that we do in the mornings, the first very metaphor, Prabhupada often says that what causes a forest fire, no one knows. So this theme that suffering the cause of it is very difficult to do. That is a consistent thing in our philosophy. And now this does not mean we don't make an attempt to find the cause so that we can find the solution. But we don't fixate on a particular cause. Our focus is on what can I do about it. So Bhishma's prayer, Bhishma's request to Yudhishthir is basically that don't blame yourself because you can't know what caused all this. Ultimately, even the great sages can't know. But what can you do? Says, now that Anathapahi Natha Prabhu, he says that all these people, there are orphans, there are widows, and they all need your help now. So the problem has come, take responsibility to fix the problem. And then he says that, then finally he turns to himself. And he says that ultimately everything works under the plan of the Lord. Tasyanubhito Rajam. He's not saying everything. Prabhupada's translation is very precise over there. Prabhupada does not say everything is the plan of the Lord. He says everything is within the plan of the Lord. Everything is within the plan of the Lord. When people do bad things, that is not Krishna's plan. But even when people do bad things, Krishna can still make sure that his plan keeps working. So everything is within the Lord's plan. And he says that it is that Lord who now wants you to take responsibility for the kingdom. And then he says, the Lord's plan, in the Lord's plan, sometimes we may seem to be like the villains. You know, we may feel like villains, or the world may make us feel like we are villains. But if we maintain the sincere desire to serve, then the Lord will redeem us. And in that connection, he says that Pathape Kanta Bhakteshu Ashya Bhupanu Kampitam Yanme Sunstajata Syakshat Krishno Darshanamagata. He says that because Thapya Ekanta Bhakteshu. Ekanta Bhakteshu means because I was an unflinching devotee. Ekanta Bhakteshu Pashya. Pashya means, O King, Bhupa. O King, just see. Thapya Ekanta Bhakteshu Pashya Bhupanu Kampitam. Just see what mercy the Lord has given upon me. Tathapya Ekanta Bhakteshu Pashya Bhupanu Kampitam. That just see what Anukampa he has done upon me. Yanme Syunstajata Saksha. When I was about to leave this world, Krishna Darshanamagata. That Krishna has come to give me his darshan. And he says, this is the mercy of the Lord. Now the world would have thought Bhishma made a bad choice. Bhishma remained silent when Draupadi was being dishonored. Bhishma chose the side of the Kauravas. So he said, he is not saying that I always did the right thing. But he says my heart was always in the right place. I was always trying to be devoted to the Lord. And the Lord understood my heart. And the Lord is now here with me in my final moments. So he is assuring Yudhishthir that the Lord's plan is working in your life also. Just as I was redeemed by the Lord, I am being redeemed by the Lord now. Similarly, although you may feel like you are a villain right now, don't give up the service of the Lord. Don't become discouraged. Just take up the responsibility of the kingdom. So, it is that for us when we say, going back here, being pure conscious, being dharma conscious, for us, we want to be dharma conscious. Ultimately, our dharma, our highest dharma is to serve Krishna. So the highest level is to be Krishna conscious. So this does not mean we neglect dharma, but we think, how can I do the right thing in the particular situation that I am in? So if we have that service attitude, Krishna will take us to a better place eventually. So So rather than, so when we are facing difficulties, when we feel as if it's a huge trouble that is crushing us, so at that time we can either blame someone else. This person is causing me all this trouble, or we can blame ourselves only. I am causing myself this trouble. Whichever way it is, we can beat ourselves up. Just don't focus on that. Sometimes we cannot know the cause of the suffering. We can focus on the cure. Focus on what can I do in this situation. How can I serve Krishna? How can I act to make things better? Krishna Prabhupada tried throughout his life to serve Krishna. He tried a business, and the business did not work. You know that today is the Republic Day of India. So let me see if I can do something for India today.
Oh God. This is the map of India. I was just in Nashik, so I did some programs there. So some of my school teachers came for one of my school teachers came for my classes. And so she attended my class. And she said, "I should have been harder on you when you are learning drawing in school." So the point is, see here we have Kolkata. Now here we have Mumbai. And here somewhere you have Prayag. Now, if you see, Prabhupada had his business in all these three places. And in those times, business people did not relocate their business like this. So people who were working in government transferred them, but then government took care of everything, your quarters and everything. But business people relocating their entire business, it was rare. The point I am making is that Prabhupada wanted to serve his Guru by offering financial support. And for that he worked extremely hard. He traveled to various parts and tried to start businesses everywhere. But wherever he tried, it just didn't work. Then Prabhupada tried to start the League of Devotees, and that also didn't work. Prabhupada tried to run the Back to God magazine. There were no takers for the magazine. Prabhupada tried to work with his God brothers, but somehow they had a very narrow vision. Either did they want to expand or did they let him expand. So Prabhupada tried everything and nothing seemed to be working. So now, what did he do at that time? He was walking on the streets and a cow hit him. And he just fell down in the streets. Back to God magazines was carrying, they just scattered everywhere. So Prabhupada suffered in many ways. Now Prabhupada, what did he do? Now, why was he going through all this? Prabhupada didn't ever say that, like I had a hotline with Krishna and Krishna was telling me. No. Prabhupada did say that at one level when he came to America, I see temples, they are filled with devotees. But then Prabhupada also said, when he came to America, I didn't know whether to turn left or right. Isn't it? So it is not that when Prabhupada was meeting anyone, Krishna was from the heart telling him, this person is not going to become a devotee, don't spend time on this person. This person is going to become a devotee, spend time with this person. No, Prabhupada was trying many things. Some things worked, many things didn't work, but Prabhupada kept trying. So the point I am making here is that when things go wrong, even when we are trying to serve Krishna, sometimes things may go wrong. And trying to find the cause of it. Prabhupada's guru had told him that if nobody ever comes for your program, then just preach to the walls. Prabhupada could have said, maybe this is Krishna's plan for me. For the rest of my life, I am meant to preach to the walls. No, but it was Prabhupada tried various things and finally Prabhupada went to America. And there he found the most unlikely audience in the people in the counterculture, the hippies. So Prabhupada was always focused, not so much on what is the cause, why is this not working out. Prabhupada was thinking, of course, his focus was always on that my purpose is to share Krishna consciousness. And I will do it here, there, wherever it works out. And somewhere it will click. So for all of us, this is the mood that when Bhishma, how he consoles that when we make a particular decision, is it the right decision, the wrong decision? We can try to analyze. We try to do a service and everything backfires. We can try to learn something. But sometimes things are so complex that we can't even learn anything. And one devotee was just telling me that the whole day they tried to do a service and everything became a debacle. And he said that, well, I'm trying to see what is the learning over here. And I just can't figure anything out. So I heard him on for 1.5 hours. And then I told him, Prabhu, maybe the only thing to learn over here is that there are some things which you can never learn. One acceptance, one understanding of humility is the acceptance of unknowability. That we just can't know. Not only do I not know, but even I can't know. So sometimes the attempt to try to learn keeps us replaying. Oh, I did this and he did this and she did this and I did like this. Just keep replaying and we stay in the past. Sometimes you just have to let the past go. Maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, we will have sufficient distance, and then we can look back and we can see maybe this is what I learned, this is what Krishna's plan was. So, humility, one aspect of it is the acceptance of unknowability. That some things are not known and they are not even knowable for us. So that is Bhishma's teaching over here, that we can't know why some things are happening. But what we can know is, what am I meant to do in this situation? So this is what I can do to serve Krishna. Let me continue doing this. And that's how he moves forward. And then finally, Bhishma, what he says, Krishna makes his words come true. Actually, Bhishma's instructions to Yudhishthira are huge. The Shanti Parva and Anushasan Parva. Those two parvas are actually bigger than the whole Yuddha Parva also. There's enormous instructions he gives. And at the end of it, when the Uttarayan begins, then he is about to depart. Now, on one side, when he becomes ready to end his life. Now, in one sense, he is a devotee, and whenever a devotee departs, it's auspicious. Krishna himself says in the Gita, Naite Suti Partha Janam Yogi Muhyati Kashchana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhava Arjuna. He says, just always practice bhakti, don't worry about the timing of death. But Bhishma, why is he worried? He's not worried for himself. But he wants that even in the world's eyes, it be demonstrated that Krishna's devotee will depart at an auspicious time. So, the world might think that, he chose adharma and Krishna fought against him, he was a devotee, Krishna did not help him. He wants to show that even from the perspective of material calculations, that the way he departs is glorious. That he is with Krishna and Krishna is blessing him, beholding him, and he is beholding Krishna. That itself is glorious. That's more from a devotional perspective. But even from a more karma-kandi kind of perspective, that when Chanmasa Uttarayana is described. When somebody departs Uttarayan, that's considered auspicious. Tatra prayata gachanti. Brahma Vido Jana. Krishna says in the Gita. So, that's why when I started this diagram, the top, I said, Bhishma, he may seem to do something adharmic, but this departure, he shows that he knows dharma, he instructs Yudhishthira in dharma, in Bhagavad dharma, in Raja dharma. And then his departure is glorious both from a dharmic perspective and also a bhakti perspective. So in this way, when he departs, he beholds Krishna, he offers prayers to Krishna. And it's interesting, the first canto, this is the only reference to the gopis. He says, Durmadanda. And the gopis became maddened with love for Krishna and they were searching for him and Krishna had disappeared in the Ras Leela. There is in Kunti's prayer there is a refer to into gopis, the gopi as Gopya Adade Tarvasita. That is referred to Yashoda Mai. But this is the only reference to the gopis. So So Bhishma is in a very exalted consciousness when he departs from the world. And his departure has become iconic. It's become the ideal departure that every Vaishnava aspires to. Srila Prabhupada also had a similar auspicious departure. He was in Vrindavan and he would leave Vrindavan repeatedly to go to Delhi. Many people in their old age they take Kshetra sannyas and never leave Vrindavan. And there was one of the persons who was staying in the next temple. He said, this Swamiji is not very detached. He says, why is he going back to Delhi again? What does he have to do with the material world? He should just stay in Vrindavan now. And we didn't know what Swamiji was up to. But Prabhupada, to the external vision, he left Vrindavan to go to America. But actually, Prabhupada did not leave Vrindavan. Prabhupada took Vrindavan with him.
Hare Krishna, I humbly request all devotees to please move forward, please, because there are many. This hall can fit 18 Akshohiris. We still have 2 more to come in. So please, there is space. I can see there is space here. Nobody is occupying it. Correct? Please do something about that space. Otherwise, they come forward. Where there is a will, there is a space. Please. There are many on the way. Yeah, and Mataji is also. That's the direction. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So, Prabhupada took the dham with him, Vrindavan with him, and he manifested Vrindavan in various parts of the world. But then Krishna arranged that when this final time came, Prabhupada was back in Vrindavan, surrounded by devotees, chanting the holy names. Prabhupada had an ideal departure, just like Bhishma had. So, in this way, Bhishma's pastime actually demonstrates how in this world, sometimes we are all put in difficulties, and even good people end up making bad choices. And sometimes those bad choices can have terrible consequences. But in the end, if we hold on strong to Krishna's lotus feet, then Krishna will eventually redeem us. Krishna will bring us back to him. And that's how Bhishma's life journey is quite adventurous, it is quite turbulent, it is quite mysterious at times. But his departure ultimately is glorious. And it demonstrates not just Bhishma's love for Krishna, but also Krishna's love for Bhishma. And that love is an eternal principle between the Lord and the devotee. And it is that eternal love that we all strive to enter into by practicing Bhakti. And that is the ultimate lesson. There are lessons in dharma. The ultimate lesson is the lesson in Bhakti that Bhishma's life teaches us. So I'll summarize what I discussed. This was 3 main points today. I started by talking about how there is this, recreating this diagram about dharma and Bhakti. So Bhishma's journey was such that there would have been times when apparently what he did was considered questionable. Krishna got him back to the right place. So we saw how Bhishma himself, in one sense, there is an atonement that he did for what had been done to Amba. Not exactly atonement, but something like an atonement. He accepted that I will not attack her now. And he let his own death, how it can be brought about, be known, and he accepted it. But then after that, he tried, even at that time, to get Duryodhana, now settle for peace. But Duryodhana didn't accept that. So, in one sense, he thought that protecting the Kuru kingdom is important for me, so like a last ditch attempt to change Duryodhana. But even that didn't work. Although he tried, but then finally, how he consoled Yudhishthira. That is what is dramatic. That he starts by saying, "You have suffered so much, and what is the cause of your suffering?" The cause is very difficult to know. There is the cause of the suffering and there is the cure for the suffering. So we like to be here, but often we have to accept that we may be here. We would like to find out some cause, but in liking to find some cause, we may assume a false cause. So Yudhishthir is thinking that the cause of the suffering is the cause of the is that my greed for the kingdom is the cause, and the cure is that I should renounce. That it is my, if I am so greedy for a kingdom, how can I continue and take the kingdom? But Bhishma says that the cause is unknowable, but the cure is do your dharma, and in this case dharma is do the will of the Lord, and that is become the king. So he says, how I myself did my dharma as I understood it the best, and the Lord has redeemed me in the being with me. And then we talked about his. Here we talk elaborately about our focus should be that the cure, the cause may be karma, but we don't know. Is it karma? We don't know. The cure is dharma. So we should be, much of the suffering in the world is that it is, as I say, idiopathic. We don't know the cause of suffering. And I try to simplistically focusing on this is the cause of suffering. If something bad has happened to someone, we should focus on how can I help them when these bad things happen. And finally we discuss about the ideal departure of Krishna. And how Krishna arranged to demonstrate that ideal departure was both from a devotional perspective, a bhakti perspective, as well as from a dharma perspective. Dharma perspective is where the karma can't died at the time of Uttarayan. So Krishna arranged for the glorious departure of Bhishma. And in that way, see, Prabhupada also went through many difficulties. But finally, it happened that Krishna brought glory to Prabhupada in the last days of his life, and then brought glory in the last decade of his life, and in the last moments of his life when he was back in Vrindavan. So, the world is a very complex place. And we can pray Krishna that, dear Lord, please help me to make the right decisions. But even if I make wrong decisions, as I will, please let my heart stay in your service. If I keep my heart devoted to you, let me have the faith that you will ultimately bring me closer to you and bring me into your eternal embrace. Thank you very much. Hare
Hare Krishna. Before I start the next plan, can you fill that four quadrants? You said accept life. When we know the cause but we don't have the cure. When you don't know the cause and the cure, what do you do?
Okay. I didn't have this is a whole different class in itself. I didn't want to go into that, but okay. If we don't either know the cause nor the cure, then we are hopeless. Now, it's like a patient who is sick and doctor doesn't know the cause, doctor doesn't know any medicine also. What do? Just die. The doctor will say that. Now, sometimes it happens the cause is known but the cure is not known. Like some diseases, they cannot be cured, they can only be managed. You know, there's something like that. So it's like sometimes we know the cause but we don't know the cure, then that's the time we just have to tolerate it. I can't do much anything about it. Now, if we know the cause of the cure, then we can act with the cure as we know it. But when act to address the cause so that we can cure it. But if we can't, then we just act according to our best intelligence. That means I don't know what is the cause, but now I am in this situation. What can I do about it? So in that sense, like Prabhupada says, "Achi kichu karya tape ei anumane, nahi ke no ani bena ei ugrasthani."
that you have brought me to America. I don't know what is going to happen over here. You must have some plan for me, so guide me. So in that sense, we could say that for all of us, if we can find a specific cause, then we should address that cause. But if we can't find the cause, then we just use our intelligence. Okay, what is the best way I can? This is the situation. How can I act to deal with the situation? Like I said, if the firefighters find the cause, then they can attack the fire appropriately. If they can't find the cause, still they have to attack the fire using the best intelligence. So like that. Either things make sense or I make sense in the things, even if the things don't make sense.
Thank you very much. Perhaps. Still, the hopeless part is a little hopeless. Okay. Thank you.
Now, ultimately, see, for us, the ultimate cure for all suffering is Krishna. That Krishna consciousness, remembrance of Krishna. So we don't have to be in that situation. It's only when we seek a particular kind of cause and a particular kind of cure, then we say there's no cure available. I just don't know. But if we accept that in some problems, we just can't figure out the cause, but ultimately, if I take shelter of Krishna, it will help me to come out and help me to rise above the problem. So in that sense, we don't have to be, if somebody is in that quadrant, in many ways, that is by choice. That is not by force. So we can choose, okay, ultimately I know, whatever be the cause of the problem, the ultimate cure is, I need to move closer to Krishna. I need to take shelter of Krishna. So nobody has to be in that quadrant in that sense.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Let us thank the three loud and enthusiastic Haribo. Okay, now we're going to play a little game. Are you all ready for it? Now the game here is, Prabhuji only told this was done previously in Nasik recently. It turned out to be a very, very nice game, and Prabhuji is the one who is going to play it ultimately. But we are going to make Prabhuji play it. What does it mean? That Prabhuji is very good at mixing words. You have seen that?
Yes.
Yeah? He can bring two words and then join, and some statements that he makes are like, like he told last time, some people self-congratulate themselves. And that is like just not going out of your mind.
And accidental beneficiary.
Accidental beneficiary. So now, what the game we're going to play, especially the boys here, some of them want them to be engaged. First preference is for anybody here below 20. Okay? Anybody below 20. That side also, this side also. So the game is very simple. You're going to tell one word. Anything that comes to your mind. Anything that comes to your mind.
Not something like microprocessors.
Something that makes sense.
So something, basically, I'll try to make a sentence using the word that you're given based on the Mahabharata. So the Prabhus can give one word, Mataji can give one word. I'll try to make a sentence combining the two.
Yes. So it is the same situation. That said some actuaries, this said some actuaries. Prabhu is giving a message in between. Yeah. So, are we ready? Yeah. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So let's see what Krishna is going to speak through Prabhuji for the words that we are going to say. Right? Hare Krishna. Shri Radha Madan Mohan is here. Jagannath Prabhu Sudramaya ki. Gaur Nitai ki. Shri Prabhupada ki. So the first word, Mataji is first. Anybody below 20?
Maybe those who knew the game, you watch the podcast. Could you start with the word? You can start with the word.
So I will start with the word. So just to give a demonstration. Okay? Okay, yeah?
Fair.
Fair. F-A-I-R. Fair.
Hate.
Fair and hate. Okay.
Duryodhan hated the Pandavas because he felt that it was not fair that he was supposed to be the king and suddenly the Pandavas had come and taken over his claim to the kingship. He wanted it to be a little more philosophically insightful also. So I'll just add one more sentence. That it's like, so I had a website called Spiritual Words Daily. So there I used to make a sentence based on the Ramayana, Mahabharata and the Bhagavad Gita. So when we feel that life is not fair, that is when we become most vulnerable to the emotion of hate.
Well, this is really, Sashur was saying, microprocessor working at its like Pentium 2022.
Unbelievable.
Unbelievable. It's not easy. Krishna is really playing such role. So you all understood the game?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we repeat the sentence?
So when we feel that life is not fair to us, that is when we become most vulnerable to hate.
So one word. Okay, let's keep it below 25. Anybody? Lift your hand. One word. Yes, Mother. Huh? Acceptance. No, you're not doing it. One word? Any one of you? Huh?
Consciousness.
Consciousness. Acceptance. Consciousness.
The consciousness with which Yudhishthir exhibited acceptance of Duryodhana's atrocities was that he felt that maybe Duryodhana was insecure, and by just being on guard and not trying to counterattack, Duryodhana would calm down. But unfortunately, Duryodhana only increased his atrocities thereafter.
The consciousness with which he accepted that was.
Yeah.
Haribol. Okay, you have a word. Hare Krishna. Yes. Emotional.
Okay. That's a good word.
Who is your mother here?
Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, emotional. Anybody here? Quickly, now anybody can tell. Lift your hand. There. Irreproachable.
What is the meaning?
First, I need to know the meaning of irreproachable. Irreproachable.
Prabhuji knows all words in dictionary.
How many of you know that Prabhuji's hobby was to read dictionaries when he had free time? And what was he doing when he was in busy time? He was reading books. Right? So when he was tired reading books, or rather he wanted a break, he would take a dictionary and read the entire dictionary. And Prabhuji told that he finished the entire Collins Small Dictionary. Finished. Memorizing the entire dictionary. And that's an irreproachable thing. Just kidding. So, irreproachable, emotional.
So when you are using the word irreproachable, it has multiple meanings. Are you saying unapproachable, or irreproachable means beyond chastisement? What are reproachable is to be chastised? Unapproachable. Irreproachable and emotional. When Bhima became emotional with anger, especially during the war, he became irreproachable for all the Kauravas who would run in fear for him.
You have a word. Yes, good.
Wait, what is it?
Very nearly. There is another word also used. Very nearly, perpetually. Okay, very nearly. Faith. Faith is over? No, not it. Very nearly and faith.
The faith that Draupadi had in Krishna, even when she was subject to the greatest dishonor, can be a perennial source of inspiration for all devotees.
Calculate. It is only 3 seconds project to start the answer. Something weird with the yeah. Yes, bro. Concoction. Yeah. So Prabhupada taught all of it.
Devotion.
What for the
Concoction and devotion.
Hope. Concoction and hope.
Hope.
Hope. H-O-P.
HOP.
Concoction and hope.
After Krishna showed the universal form and smashed Duryodhana's plan to arrest him, Duryodhana still maintained his hope in winning against Krishna by coming up with the concoction that Krishna's universal form was just a magic trick that he had.
Hare.
Can we give
Huh?
votes?
Just 2 seconds.
Somebody can give votes?
Huh? Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. You already told one, right? Yeah, let somebody else take it. Yeah, you told the boys said, okay, helplessness. Still Mataji have taken the word. Balance. Helplessness and balance. Helplessness and balance.
When Yudhishthir felt a total sense of helplessness after his army suffered a severe loss on the first day of the war, it was Krishna's words of wisdom that helped him to restore his balance.
Yes, you want to say anyone? Huh? Turmoil. Okay. Turmoil. Yes, you will.
Cautious.
Cautious and turmoil. Oh. It's getting tougher. Come in.
So,
Okay.
when Yudhishthir came to know that Abhimanyu had been killed, his heart became filled with so much turmoil that he decided to attack the Kauravas and either take revenge for the death of Abhimanyu or die himself. But at that time, Vyasadeva intervened and offered him, what was it, cautious. Told him to become cautious by assuring him that victory would come to him in a few days.
So many sections of Mahabharata we are going across Parvas. Right? Just it is going from the end of the war to the beginning of the war and between the whole saga. Hare Krishna. Yes, one more word. Renunciation. I know Prabhu is in America. Why that word came out, I don't know. Huh? Bewilder. He's even bewildering. So renunciation and bewilder.
When Yudhishthir expressed his desire for renunciation after he had won the war, everyone else was bewildered by that desire.
Hare Krishna. Yes. One more word. Huh?
Precarious.
Huh?
Precarious.
Precarious.
Vicarious, that's second hand.
Vicarious. I don't know the meaning.
You mean second hand, no? That's some second hand pleasure, vicarious pleasure.
What is the meaning of vicarious?
Vicarious means if somebody is watching a romantic movie and they whistle, thinking I am there and I am enjoying over. That's vicarious pleasure.
Vicarious pleasure. Okay. Vicarious. Very good.
What do you do?
That's my younger son.
What do you say? What do you say?
He said it's not me, him.
Precarious and vicarious.
Vicarious.
Vicarious. Okay. No, wait. Take somebody else. Yeah, any Mataji? Yes, Mataji?
Vicious.
Huh?
Vicious.
Vicarious and vicious. So you think about coming to Gachibowli again. They are viciously vicarious.
You're giving me time. When Duryodhan could not succeed in all his plans to try to bring down the Pandavas, he made vicarious schemes of how he could enlist the Danavas in bringing vicious suffering on the Pandavas.
Please don't, like we already are dealing with complexity, don't add more. Yeah. So what was the word?
Condescending.
Condescending.
Condescending, okay. Condescending is to look down upon someone.
To look down upon condescending, yes.
Idiopathic.
No, it's husband and wife. just there are only two things you can tell about the couple and about Mahabharata.
I think their reasons for coming up with these words are idiopathic, but your behavior toward them is condescending. And when Duryodhan was told by the sages that the fact that he could not get the whole kingdom and he should be satisfied with half the kingdom because the ways the life worked and things emerged in our life was idiopathic, he was so condescending in dismissing their advice that when Agastya spoke this, when Maitreya spoke this, he slapped his thigh in dismissiveness. And then Maitreya cursed him, his thigh would break and he would die.
Yeah.
Transient.
Transient. What is the meaning of it? How many want help in understanding the meaning of this word sometimes? Should I ask? Or no?
Yes.
I got 36 in English. So. Transient. Okay.
Temporary, fleeting, yeah.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Huh?
Disheartening.
Disheartening and transient. Okay.
That the suffering of the Pandavas was transient was heartening for the Pandavas but disheartening for the Kauravas.
Inevitable. Who told that? Very good. Inevitable. Thank you, ma'am. You already told one word. Wait. Let's take one more. Anybody else? Yes, okay. No, English. What's up, girl? What was it? No, English word. Duty. Duty, is that okay? You're not satisfied with the word. Is any word?
Dharma is okay.
Dharma is also okay. Well, let's take dharma. So what was your word? Inevitable and dharma. Okay, let's go with this. Inevitable, dharma.
Because Yudhishthir was so devoted to dharma, it was inevitable that he would be pulled sooner or later by differing dharmas in opposite directions and would therefore be subjected to indecision.
Hare Krishna. Don't think it's just a sentence. So you can give one hour class on this. You know why he felt subjected to many dharmas.
So this was, I was talking about the incident specifically was when Yudhishthira was called for gambling. You know, he felt that he should not gamble because that will lead to violence. But other dharma was that since my elders are calling me, Dhritarashtra is like a father figure for me, I cannot disobey. So the devotion to dharma itself led him to that confusion.
Hare Krishna. Yeah. Now let us play a little surprise game for Prabhuji also. Prabhuji knew this game. So I can't say that he fixed it. But I'm going to come up with some. Is that okay?
Yes,
Something little different. Prabhuji is not answering. Okay. So if Bhagavad Gita was
I am uncomfortably ready or comfortably unready.
Hare Krishna. If Krishna had to speak Bhagavad Gita to anybody else, what would his ultimate message be? Right? So you have to guess the character and Prabhuji will tell the message of Krishna. Is that okay? Little different game.
The mind of Krishna.
You got quite a good imagination. Let's try. I'm not sure.
Let's try. Okay, let's try. So what you're going to do, you're going to tell a character from Mahabharata, whether or not you met Krishna, doesn't matter. But Krishna knows everything, Sarvatrayami, he knows everything. So if Krishna had to give a message to him, whatever that message would be, for the best message that he could know. Right? So you can tell the character.
Karna.
Yes, bro.
Karna.
Huh?
Karna.
Barbaric. Barbaric. If Krishna had to tell him, how many know barbaric? Okay, good.
You want to tell something about barbaric? Because if I say that a particular message is to be given,
Yeah, maybe a little intro to barbaric.
you got me a little unawares. Can you give me some time? You tell about barbaric. Whatever you know about, you also don't know about barbaric.
He was the son of Gachibowli, and he had this Vardhan. He had to be on either sides of the army, but he told that he is going to support the side which is going to become weaker. And he was a warrior who cannot be defeated. He had that kind of blessing. So
actually, I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I really can't speculate what Krishna will say.
Yeah.
But what I could do is,
Yeah.
I can tell which verse of the Bhagavad Gita would be most relatable with that character.
Which verse from Bhagavad Gita would be the best verse that a character in Mahabharata would learn? Right?
Not
So
necessarily good luck, but a relatable way.
Relatable
So
way.
in the barbaric, he has the vision that when he's asked that, what did you see in the war? Barbaric was on a nearby in the bonfire, he's watching. So he says, I saw only Krishna and Sudarshan Chakra destroying everyone. So the verse that relates most is Krishna says, Mayai vaite nihata purvameva nimitta matram bhava savisachi. 11:33 he says that by my arrangement all your enemies have been killed, you just become an instrument in the fight. So
Okay. Yes, should be one. Draupadi.
Kaunteya pratijani name bhakta pranashyati. That my devotee will never perish, no matter what happens.
Hare Krishna.
Shikhandi.
Shikhandi.
Krishna says, he shows this Virat Rupa in the 11th chapter, and he tells Arjuna on one side that your enemies are going to be killed by me, just be an instrument. But at the end of it, at 11:33, 11:55, he says that you fight. Sorry, it says mat karma krun mat paramo mat bhakta sangha varjita nirvaira sarvabhuteshu yasamamiti pandav nirvaira sarvabhuteshu. He says you fight, but don't have enmity towards anyone. Fight to establish dharma, not to take revenge. So Shikhandi did not fight. Shikhandi did in fact the opposite of that. So the verse that was most relevant to it was consumed with the desire for revenge. Yes, a wrong has been done, a wrong may have to be fixed. But don't be consumed by the desire to take revenge. So nirvaira sarvabhuteshu.
I have a chance. I'm not taking my chance. Please. Gandhari.
When Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna Yatra Partha Dhanurjaya. Now that Sanjay is speaking that to Dhritarashtra, it is also being heard by Gandhari. She is also with him. But that verse, at one level, is a cyclic answer to the first verse. What happened? Kimakur Vata. So he's not only saying what happened, but he's also saying what is going to happen. That wherever there is Krishna and where there is Arjuna, there is going to be victory. So Gandhari did have a significant level of influence. So if Gandhari had put her foot down and she had forced Dhritarashtra, she was the one person who had some control on Dhritarashtra. Dhritarashtra was completely bound to Duryodhana. But she recognized and accepted that this will cause the death of Duryodhana. And she had warned Dhritarashtra. Maybe Dhritarashtra would have put his foot down and the war could have been avoided.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Ekalavya. Hare Krishna.
I think it's 1847-48. Sarvarambha doshena dhumenab nirbhavata. That every endeavor in this world is covered by fault. That now he was told that he cannot be an archer, and yet he chose to be an archer, and eventually he lost his finger. It was all unfair to him. But the fact is that some things are just not meant to be. I mean, if we accept that these things are not meant to be, then we can move forward and do what is possible for us. But in trying to do paradharmo bhayao, that's also another word which apply to him, that when he chose to do someone else's dharma, he had the ability of a kshatriya, but he did not have the disposition. That's why he targeted a innocent dog and sewed up its mouth. So paradharmo bhayava, that would be one words that would apply. And also, whatever endeavor we are doing, just because it's faulty, don't give it up.
Who is he?
Sorry, I cannot hear you. What is it?
Durmasena. Who is he?
Dushasana's son.
Dushasana's son.
What did he do? What did he do?
He was the person who killed Abhimanyu?
Yes. In Chakravarti.
Yeah.
Oh. Durmasena. That was a message.
That which tastes like nectar in the beginning will taste like poison in the end. Now that was his great victory on that day. But the next day, Arjuna went berserk and he destroyed more of the Kaurava army in one day than what he had done in the previous 13 days. And so that which was like nectar on one day for the Kauravas turns out to be poison the next day.
Kunti Devi.
Machitta sarvadurgani mat prasada tarishyasi. That if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all obstacles my mind creates. Kunti also says that she says, let the obstacles come again and again because they will make me more conscious of you. You will have your darshan. So she actually demonstrates that faith, that being conscious of Krishna is more important than simply avoiding obstacles.
Uttara. Okay, Uttara.
I think same verse I would think of what I talked about Kunti or Draupadi. Ante pratijani neve bhakta pashyati. But another verse we could have is that Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshishyami ma shucha. So that Uttara, she was surrounded by so many people who were all her family and her protectors, but nobody could protect her that time. So she came to Krishna. So Mother, she demonstrates that Krishna, you alone can protect. And Krishna actually did that. Krishna protected her by entering into her womb and reviving the embryo that had actually been killed by Ashwatthama's Brahmastra.
Subhadra? She's there in Mahabharata. Yeah, Arjuna.
Yam hi na vyathyante te purusham purushashava samadukha sukham dhinam samudhatvaya kalpate. Subhadra, when she lost Abhimanyu, at that time Arjuna could not console her. Arjuna felt that he had failed in protecting Abhimanyu. So at that time Krishna told her that You are a daughter of a hero, you are the wife of a hero, and you are the mother of a hero. That this is a phase that will pass in your life. Do not. It's at this time. It is you have lost your son, but don't let your husband feel that he has lost you also. He needs you right now. You are the wife of a hero, and be the wife that the husband needs right now.
We'll take two more. Just two more probably. Shantan.
I would say Gahana Karmanavati. Karmana is Bodham, Bodham J Karmana, Karma se Bodham, Gahana Karmanavati. That complex are the ways in which karma works. Now Shantanu would not have thought that just his desire to have one more wife would eventually lead to having a son like, having a descendant like Duryodhan, because of which the whole war would work out. So one action can have a cascading effect.
Bhima. Okay, yeah. Bhima.
Balam balatam chara. I am the strength among the strong. Kama raga vivarjita. Yutam chalayam asmi. Because among cheaters I am the gambler. So he won the gambling match in Hastinapur. But Karna himself says that the dice that Shakuni threw will come back to us as the arrows of Arjuna's Gandhi Bhagavad. And he says that what Shakuni did, Shakuni used tricks, but Krishna actually out-tricked Shakuni in the Kurukshetra war. And Shakuni did various schemes before the war, but there is no scheme that Shakuni did actually in the war. Krishna only did all the schemes, and he brought down all the Pandavas, all the Kauravas, one by one. So,
So there is one weird, not weird, but very imaginary. So there are two Ashwathamas. One is Ashwatthama, son of Drona, and another Ashwatthama, elephant who got killed by Bhima. So there is the elephant of Bhima, Ashwatthama. What would be the message from Bhagavad Gita?
Yajnathat karmananyatra, yajnathat karmananyatra lokoyam karmananyatra. In a way to work in a mood of sacrifice for some higher cause. So he lost his life, but for a higher cause of getting the Pandavas to win the war.
Okay, this is the last one. We'll go ahead. Okay, there are two. There is only two. Bhishma and Vidura. Okay, done. Then we'll go ahead with the questions and answers. Many are waiting in our
Bhishma, api chet sudaracharo bhajite mamanampa, sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasitavasa. And even if my devotee does the most terrible things, if the devotee is determined in that to serve me, then that person is to be considered saintly. So what Bhishma did, remaining silent at Draupadi's story, that was terrible. But sadhureva samantavya.
Vidura.
Anudvegakaram vakyam satyam priyahitam chayat. That we speak words which are non-agitating, also truthful. So he always exhibited the discipline of speech. That throughout his life, if I had to give guidance to
Dhritarashtra, but he didn't listen. After Duryodhana was killed, then those words had an impact. His power of speech.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Beautiful sentence in Srimad Bhagavatam where Lord Krishna says that I cannot be found, in the Vedas, I cannot be found here, I cannot be found there, in many places, but I am definitely there at a place where my devotees are sitting and talking about me.
I appreciate the creativity of this game. You really made me work hard.
Did anybody see Krishna here? Right now sitting here? You can see him?
Yes.
Very good, very good. I mean, there's really mercy of Vaishnavas who we say Vanchakal. Why not do Vanchakal? Vanchakal Karupesya Kripasin Koti Dharanam Pavani Vaishnavi Devo Namo Namaha. It's a fortune, greatest fortune that Prabhuji has shared all this with us. And literally, I was just thinking, whenever the question is coming or the word is coming, how Krishna is going to speak back, immediately. And every single verse, Prabhuji, that you told has so much to discuss about that particular character also. And by the way, I didn't plan this. I just stood up and thought about something like that. And you narrated it was and I wouldn't be surprised that Prabhuji comes up with a book of this kind in future, where every character of Mahabharata is supported with, with a verse of Bhagavad Gita, of how it applies to everyone in Mahabharata, before and after, everything. Something in itself, very creative. Something with the backup of. And how many of you have read this book? I have read it little, it will be really fruitful. But Palma and Prabhu read it exactly. And this book,
could you come this side, bro? Yeah.
Because of that?
Maybe
Okay.
because of that.
No, I think I'm done. Next is the question answers. So there is this book of Prabhuji where he goes 700 verses, and each verse he connects it to many of the other verses in Bhagavad Gita. Right? What's the name of the book? Each verse, how is it related to other verses? How the other verses are supporting it? You wrote a
There are two books, Relation Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavad Gita Insights.
Yeah.
Bhagavad Gita Insights. Yeah. So one of the most unique, one of the most so the pure
Not sure.
that's the feedback. Okay, I think that's the indication I have to stop here. So there are a lot of questions, that are going to be answered now. We still have time. So please come forward and
Hare Krishna, Danda Pranam. Thank you, Guruji, with a wonderful lecture and playing with the words. Actually, Prabhu, in Telugu, there is a process called Avadhana. I don't know. Sanskrit and Telugu.
It's a process.
Yeah, so the scholar will sit, Prabhu, and then there will be people asking questions like this. They'll give 4 words and say, make a poem, context of Mahabharata.
Using those 4 words.
With using those 4 words. Or they will say, don't use these 4 words and make a context of this story from Mahabharata Ramayana. So it's a negation and also inclusion. And they ask, like in a 100 people will sit and ask a line, and he'll start from the first person, remembering what is the question also. So the question will go on first until 100 people. Then he'll remember the first one and then answer that and say, there is a process. So that and you
Exam this
almost
quarter and
close
also-
that too. Guruji, sorry, my question is, in the beginning we talked about Bhishma, defeating Virata war. But we know that he is undefeatable. What was the context and why he got defeated by Arjuna and that?
Okay, that's a good question. How exactly was he defeated? Okay, the word defeat has also many different meanings in different contexts. It was that he was overwhelmed.
In the Kurukshetra war, there are many occasions when one warrior would get injured and then warrior would be carried away. So we could say, in one sense, he was defeated, but then the warrior would re-emerge and fight again. So what happened was the war was going on continuously, and then Arjuna in the forest had performed severe austerities, and he had got many medals. So he had got a particular weapon, I forget the name of that. It just releases an endless array of arrows. And as the arrays of arrows, Bhishma didn't know what to do. He was just taken aback by that. He did not know that Arjuna had that weapon. And so he was overwhelmed with that array of arrows, and he just fell back. But Bhishma was also a resourceful warrior. So he found out which of his weapons. So when next time the war was going to happen, he had prepared for it. So in that sense, at that particular time, one particular weapon, it's like say, if there's a war going on between two countries, one country develops a new weapon. They overwhelm the other country using that weapon. The other countries don't want to stay quiet. They will do research or they will buy some other weapon. They learn how to counter it. So it was one celestial weapon with which Arjuna overwhelmed Bhishma at that particular time.
In the movie, it's called Samohanastra.
I think it's Samohan, correct.
Yeah. Then
Hare Krishna, it's a wonderful class. Thank you. So my question is, what are the Bhishma transition from Bhakti Dharma quadrant to taken back to Bhakti Dharma? Ruji should actually narrate that situation from Bhakti Dharma quadrant to Bhakti Adharma and then back to Bhakti Dharma. And how did from which way Bhishma got help to transition back from Adharma Bhakti quadrant to Bhakti Dharma quadrant?
Well, I would say that Adharma is basically that when he sided with Duryodhan, or when he stayed silent when Draupadi was being dishonored, he didn't actually stay silent, but he did not take a strong stand against it. So that was, in Prabhupada said, that was something which was a serious wrongdoing. Now we could say his siding with Duryodhan was the Adharma in the war. But eventually, so especially those incidents, those two incidents are where what he did was certainly questionable. But then eventually, when Krishna himself, when he guides Yudhishthir, that shows that he is not holding any bitterness. That because of you I am suffering so much pain. You asked me how to kill me, and now you killed me and left me lying over there. He instructed him in that. Krishna also sat and heard the instructions. That indicates that he has come back to that.
More interested in understanding how did he come back to this quadrant? Is it like this?
Well, I don't think it was like, it was more circumstantial. It was not that he was misled by anything. It was that he had a particular vow and he thought this is the way I have to fulfill this vow by always being supportive of the ruler of the kingdom, Kuru kingdom. So when those circumstances changed, that particular vow, which was also a form of dharma, but that dharma actually in one sense led into adharma. In sticking to that vow, he ended up doing something which he should not have done. So, but then when the circumstances of that vow changed, he just came back. So you could say this is the complexity of the situation, because of which sometimes some unfortunate decisions happen. So I don't think he needed any help from anyone. He was himself wise. Circumstances, that's why the example in the Gita is given that he is compared like a river moves toward the ocean. Like that some warriors are drawn to their death by the force of nature itself. Some, yatha nadinam bahuvam puvega is one metaphor. The other is yatha pratiptam jvalanam patanga. That some are like moths rushing into fire. So Duryodhan, by his own actions, is like that moth. Is bringing about his own destruction. But Bhishma is not like that.
Prabhuji, just an extension or related to what you told, circumstances. Now, recently we had this very bad situation in Bangladesh where Hindus were literally being targeted and they were almost in fear of extinction at one point. I don't know what's happening right now. And the whole India was watching it. Bharat was watching the whole thing, and being a land of Hindus and, your own people are on the other side. And the circumstance, whatever it is, but they could not act. nothing happened. Even government couldn't do anything. Even the biggest of the institutions just had to stay. I don't know whatever the act they did but nothing came out in public. And so this kind of situation, Prabhuji, when you know what has to be done, or what is the best thing to be done, but you become helpless of not being able to do that. And the same thing, sorry, my question is long. The same thing with Bhishma, when Draupadi was being bestowed. He knew what had to be done, and everything was absolutely clear what would have been the best thing to do, right? But I'm trying to, draw any parallels between these two incidents. Like, it's happening right now, and we are not able to do anything. And we question Bhishma why he didn't do anything. You can comment on it.
Yeah, I think this is a metaphor that I've heard used many times in our movement also. That if something is going wrong somewhere, and there is some devotee who is a senior devotee over there, and that devotee doesn't do anything about it. Because you are being like Bhishma. While XYZ is acting like Duryodhana, you are doing nothing. So it is possible. I don't know how accurate the metaphor is in each situation, but it's not a straightforward comparison because Bhishma had a particular vow. So for Bhishma, you could say it was weakness, but it's not so much weakness as it was more like focus, like a unidimensional focus on one aspect of dharma, which led to other things. And ultimately, these are great characters, and especially when doing ethical analysis, our focus should not be so much on who is right as on what is right. So, why Bhishma did what he did, we can try to understand through some circumstances. But we are not meant to stand in judgment of Bhishma. It is more that this is the kind of situation that comes in our life, and then what is right that we can do in such situations. So, I think two things have happened after that. One is there has become at least we would say this was the first targeted attack on Hindus that happened in the social media age. The Kashmir genocide or Kashmir, whatever you want to say, whether people dispute the word genocide, whatever happened, ethnic cleansing or whatever word you want to use, that happened in the pre-social media age. So there's no recording of that. But here there are images and everything, especially because Twitter was a little liberated to censor things. So on X, a lot of things came up. So I think this has caused an awakening that has not happened before. So one of the things is that Kshatriyas have to work in two ways. Kshatriyas are not just warriors, they are also administrators. So, it's not just that Kshatriya influence means you're fighting. Kshatriya influence is also advocacy. Work with administration. Have ways in which we can pressurize. We have the word and lobbying has a negative connotation, but lobbying, pressure groups and all that. We need to exert that. We need to learn to throw our weight around. Jews are a much smaller community than Hindus, but they are expert at this. So I've talked with several devotees in America, some Hindu groups also. In America, we have that Hindu Association of America or something, HAF, something like that. So they did some protests, and advocacy has become definitely something which is being much more talked about. So yes, what happened was terrible, but it has definitely awakened, as we were not ready that something like this could happen. And another thing that has happened also because of this is that there has become a greater openness to turn back and look at the wrongs that have happened in history. So in the past, because India emerged from a religious partition which was extremely violent, the government tried to sanitize the history, and they said that all the incidents from history which would trigger religious tensions. Let's not talk about it. They tried to whitewash the attacks against the Hindus and all those things. But
Now there are many mainstream historians, other historians who are actually writing about this, and people are reading about it. I mean, mainstream podcast it is coming out in India. Or what Tipu Sultan is considered, for example, a great king, but what he did was horrendous. And like that, things are coming out. And young people are talking about it. So I would say that yes, we did lose this war, and we did lose this battle, and we lost this battle quite badly. But I think losing this battle has actually prepared us for the bigger war. So both in terms of the forming of the advocacy and the awareness of the historical wrongs. That is something which is a big positive. There is always this question that should we try to learn about history to know what actually happened, or should we learn about history to make sure that today things don't get disrupted. So now, is truth to be understood as it is, or is truth to be understood to serve a particular cause? The problem with the second is that whose cause are you serving? When truth becomes weaponized or subordinated. So anyway, the truth coming out is an important thing. And as devotees, many of our devotees are in relatively influential positions. Not hugely influential. We didn't really get into politics in any way, most of us, but I think things are changing. So these two things major I see, but overall there is a significant awakening that has happened. Actually, I had been to Bangladesh for the first time just last year only. Amazing devotees and very dedicated. I'm in touch with those devotees. Fortunately, they are safe, but there is danger. So hopefully, I think things with now the US government changing, they will have to hold things under. They'll be held accountable. If not held accountable, at least the atrocities will stop because of that. So, what do they say that sometimes when you enter the big league, you get knocked around because you're not ready for the big league. So India is rising to the big league, but I don't think India geopolitically was prepared for something like this. But it's difficult. But those two things I would say. The awakening is happening.
Roji, just one more question. We can take others. So when we see characters like Bhishma, right, or even Yudhishthira, now you expect some really high standards of behavior and high standards of decision making and high standards of conclusive, things coming out of them. But suddenly you see they agree to do some things, or they're not acting on some things, or they're just ignoring some things, right? Like the Judah itself, that one match of Mahabharata shows different colors of different people. In that one, if that one incident is removed from Mahabharata, everything is like, oh, he is great, he is doing the right thing, he is great, he is doing the, or you can easily conclude on characters. But that one evening that happened, evening or morning, I don't know, one day that happened in Mahabharata, just made people question almost every character in the Rajya Sabha, including the Pandavas, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sardeva, Yudhishthira, Karna, Shakuni, Duryodhan, Dushasan, who could do that act, Vidura shouting there, Drona, their own teacher, Bhishma, the highest regarded person, and of course, Dhritarashtra sitting on the top, and Vikarna, out of nobody, standing up and shouting, right? So many things. So what is, my question is it becoming an excuse? Can it be seen like an excuse that tomorrow, oh, even Yudhishthira did it. It can happen to me as well. What is the lesson we should learn from this changing shades or decision makings as against their characters?
So ultimately, in these characters, when we study these characters, we have to learn the lessons that are helpful for us. Like say, if somebody hears Ajami, just chanted one name of Narayan, and we say, now does Parikshit Maharaj take from that the lesson, hey, Shukdev Goswami, stop speaking the Bhagavad, I don't have to hear for 7 days. When I see the snake bird coming,
at that time I will chant one hour. He doesn't say that. See, in general, from these incidents, we can take a lesson that is convenient for us. But is that actually what is convenient? Is it constructive? So, that lessons, we already take convenient lessons for ourselves. A convenient lesson versus a constructive lesson. So, philosophy can very easily be used to take convenient lessons. I was in IIT Kharagpur, and there was one boy who was in second year and he became a devotee. First year only, he became a devotee, and he said, I want to leave IIT and I want to join it. I said, you cannot do that. You should complete your IIT, life is long. He said, I want to become a brahmachari. I said, you may want to become a brahmachari, no? Life is long. We can't know what the future is going to be. Prepare for it properly, complete your degree, practice Bhakti for some time. He didn't seem very satisfied, but he went away. He went, and then and I was in Mayapur for a camp, and he met me in Mayapur. And he said, I met some devotee over here, and the devotee has told me I can join Mayapur. And he said, now I got a realization. He said that, I am like Bali Maharaj and you are like Shukracharya. I am like Bali Maharaj and you are like Shukracharya. I want to surrender to Vaman Dev, but you are stopping me from surrendering, so I reject you. Now, so I offer my obeisance to you. So now, I offer my best wishes to him, but unfortunately he couldn't sustain it afterwards. He just stayed there for 6 months, 1 year. Then he left there and went to some other mart. And then after 3 years he tried to join IIT again. It was very difficult. So, impulsive decisions are not very good. So basically we can all draw things what we want. So we can draw convenient lessons. And that's why there's a living tradition. So there's a living tradition which tells us what lessons to draw. So yes, our scriptures do have questionable actions even by venerable characters. But are those the lessons that the tradition has drawn? That is what we are to see. So, is it that Bhishma is a respected character? But is Bhishma's silence the lesson that the tradition has drawn? Is it that we should be silent like this? It's not the lesson that the tradition has drawn. So in that sense, there's a principle that if a text is sacred to a particular tradition, then we need to look at the text the way the tradition sees it, not just from an outsider perspective. Then we will miss out on what the tradition sees of man. So we have to see which is the lesson which is constructive. So my understanding would be that sometimes if something wrong is happening and if some of our seniors stay silent, then we may feel very bad about the silence. But we can overlook that by saying that they are acting like Bhishma. If they are still exalted devotees, their silence is bad, the silence is terrible, but still they are senior devotees. I respect them. I don't respect this particular decision of theirs. But I think we can look at their actions like that. For us, no, we may think I am a small person, but maybe I have to be like a now. I have to stand up. So, I think we should use that to excuse our actions. And certainly, it should be that I say that something bad is happening, I am like Bhishma. See, sometimes we may just not have the power to do anything about the situation. So we may decide that I choose my battles, I can't do anything about this. So I will not do anything. Sometimes we have to play the long game. We see something is wrong, but we don't have the power to fix it. When we grow as we serve, we grow in stature, we grow in understanding, we grow in position, and maybe later on we can get to fix some things. So some bad things are always there in the world, and it's very difficult when those bad things are either allowed by good people or they are sometimes they are done by the good people also. So it's difficult. So it's we can use it to excuse. That's the main thing I would say. Not use it for excusing our own actions, but not letting it permanently contaminate
our vision of senior devotees who stay silent amid questionable situations.
I mean, when you're saying that, I was thinking how Arjuna, such a strong character, such a great hero, saw his wife, being abused, and he also saw his most respectful grandfather right there, not acting on it, right? But still, he carried the love and affection towards his grandfather, even in the battlefield, like you were expressing just some time back. That he was thinking, how should I act against my grandfather?
Yeah, see, one more thing over there is that the cultural aspect, I said the controversies can come from concoction, they can come from the complexity of the situation, they can come from culture. So, giving like the word of honor, how important that was, that's something is quite difficult for people, for us today to understand. That's so okay, they had lost themselves in the gambling match. Does that mean that even Arjuna and the Pandavas have to stay silent when Draupadi is being dishonored like that? No, do they have to be bound by those words? We could ask that question also. But as I said, Bhishma went silent, the Pandavas were also silent. So it's a very different culture, and they had a different sense of a code of honor at that particular time. So even if somebody has lost themselves, if somebody has become a slave, does that mean a servant or a maid or a slave or whatever? Does that mean that they can never raise their voice against their masters, even when they do something like this? So it does seem there's a particular code operating over there, and that is quite incomprehensible to us today. So I would say that is also there. We can try to learn what we can, but almost the whole incident among, I would say, in that Mahabharata, among all the incidents, that incident, it's almost everybody's actions. It seems too bizarre. So it's just, everybody's actions is incomprehensible. In some ways, incomprehensible over there.
Any question? Yeah.
So that situation is idiopathic.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Hare Krishna Prabhuji, Dandavad Pranam. My question is regarding that idiopathic quadrant that we discussed some time back. There is this innate curiosity in people to find what is the reason, right? And there are sayings which says that there is no smoke without fire. And even our corporates have gone to the extent that they do RCA, root cause analysis for everything, and doing 5 analysis. Why did A happen? Because of B. Why did B happen? Because of C. They go all the way till 5 levels. Right? So, but there are certain things for which we cannot know the root cause. We cannot know the cause. So how do we differentiate between those things where I don't know the root cause versus where I can't know the root cause, so that I can stop my endeavors to find out the cause? So how do I differentiate? Which one falls into that quadrant?
If I had an answer, my life would also be much easier. Yeah, it's difficult. Sometimes finding the cause can be a major part of our service, and we try to do that. So I think it will generally these kind of situations, how far to go, I would say it will depend on 2 factors. It is our position and our disposition. Guna karma vibhagasha. Guna is the disposition, karma is the position. So, like, as a patient, the doctor says this is idiopathic. Do I, as a patient, decide, okay, now I will do an exhaustive research of medical books to try to find it out? No, that's not my position. Okay, I can say I'll try to get a medical degree. It's a very long distance. But what scientists, what doctors today consider idiopathic, there are still researchers who are doing research. So if somebody's job is to do research, then they will keep doing that, and that's their position. So in one sense, it is not that the humanities' search for knowledge has to be abandoned, but we have to keep a sense of perspective that how much is this search costing, and is this search worth the cost? Like I said, can we learn from the past? Yes, we can. But is trying to learn from the past
is it causing me to replay the past so much that I'm living in the past instead of letting go of the past? So that's difficult. That so how will you, I don't think there's any one answer to it, but I think it's like some people, if that is their service, that they should keep doing it. That they should keep doing it. That's their job, that's their service. But and some people just have that itch. I need to understand. Then they can also keep searching because they're at their disposition. But as I said, be dharma conscious. What is my main focus of my activity? Is it helping me to do my activity? And it'll work that way.
Yeah, other yes. No, wait.
Prabhuji, this question I've been having for the last 40 years, Prabhuji, and I'm 50 years old. So, I always think Draupadi never really got the justice. Because it's very, as a woman, I think I have earned the right to say this in some sense. No man can probably understand what Draupadi went through. And as a woman, probably I can understand a tad bit more than a man. Whatever is the reason, whatever is the 5 husbands, I mean, I cannot even imagine with one husband that, what would I have done, right? So it's so hard, Prabhuji. In the end, it is said that literally my at 10th birthday, my father bought me Amar Chitra Kathas, which was a set of 20 books, entire Mahabharata, and he got it nicely bound and everything. This was the only book I read only one time. Rest of the books I read multiple times because it was very hard to digest as a 10-year-old. And it grew over the time. I still today I think that whatever is the reasoning philosophy, Draupadi was never served justice. This is my opinion. And then there is a book by Her Grace Ujjwala Radha Mataji, who wrote a book called The Woman Who Rebuilt, the authentic tale of Draupadi through 8 empowering stories and things like that. So where the whole gist of the book is she's not a victim. In fact, she altered the course of world history. If she was not there, probably Kauravas would have even gone on to rule the world. She is the main reason why everything Kauravas wanted didn't happen. In that sense, she is probably the most powerful person in the entire Mahabharata. In all of this, at the end, I think justice was not served. Is it true that Bhima took the blood of Dushasana and washed her hair, and she never tied her hair until that happened from the day that horrible incident happened? Might be true, but even that wouldn't give back the honor that she lost that day, and the kind of disappointment she might have had of all the so-called powerful 5 husbands and elders and whatnot. Did justice happen to her, Prabhuji? That's the question.
I don't know, for many characters, justice doesn't happen in this world. Abhimanyu went into the war with good intentions. He expressed apprehension. Maybe that I can go in, but I cannot come out. And Bhima assured him, you go in and we will break the Chakravyuh from inside, following you. He trusted the when he went in. And then he was trapped. So, in many ways, the hope or the expectation that justice should happen in our eyes, to our vision, like in principle, justice is that justice should not just be done, but it should be seen to be done. That is there. But unfortunately, there are many cases where justice does not happen in the eyes, in this world's eyes, in what we can see. And that is an unfortunate fact of life. So we can look at many characters, like when we had the story of the Ganga coming to the earth. So many kings who performed austerities, performed lifelong austerities, and they died. They didn't get to see. They didn't get to see at all the Ganga coming to the earth. Prabhupada fought for the Juhu temple more than any other project. And the Juhu temple was inaugurated in Jan 14. Prabhupada departed in Jan 14, 1978. Prabhupada departed in November 14, just 2 months. Prabhupada could have said to Krishna, just let me live, this is short while. Just let me see this temple, let me see you in this temple, I did this for you. Prabhupada accepted. And Prabhupada asked, which Ichchani? Do you have any last desires? So, in some ways, while we do want to see justice happen in this world also, one part of accepting that there is a bigger reality, this world is a reality, but there is a bigger reality. And the story of life does not end with this world. And sometimes justice does not happen in this life or this world. So, when some bad things happen, it's very difficult to come to terms with them. Now, as far as whether justice happened, see again, this is also, maybe I'll talk about this more in one separate session in this. But what happens is that we are in a particular cultural context. And then those characters live in a different cultural context. So, is it possible that their sense of justice was also different from our sense of justice? Because isn't justice universal? Well, yes and no. So, if you think Draupadi was treated unfairly, then what do you think about Sita? Now, what was her fault? But then, if you see from that perspective, I have written a whole article about this, but it's the ethos of that particular book. Sita is a different character. I don't want to go more into that, but I'll just talk about a principle over there. That we could see that Ram was the victimizer and Sita was the victim. That Ram sent Sita away from into the forest, no fault of his. But then, if we take the same parallel, Dashrath sent Ram to the forest for no fault of Ram. Isn't it? So, was Ram a victim and Dashrath the victimizer? No, in that sense, we understand that Dashrath had given a word of honor. Now, that sense of honor we are able to understand. But the sense of honor that made Ram send Sita away, that is much more difficult for us to understand. So, was Ram distressed when he had to go away? He was. Dashrath was distressed. So, similarly, when Ram sent Sita away, Ram was not happy about it. Now, Ram certainly did not replace Sita with some other wife. Did Ram consider Sita to be impure? No. He had her own golden effigy made when he had to perform yajnas. And that means he considered her pure. That's why he had her for the yajnas. And in the Brahmanas, they did not object to him having her in that form with him. So just as Ram and Dashrath were participating, the circumstance brought them to a place where they had to both sacrifice. And Ram is not a victim, similarly Sita is not a victim. And it was, you could say that Ram lived in comfort and Sita lived in austerity, and that is true. But the fact is, it was a sacrifice of both of them. Definitely for Sita it was a far greater sacrifice, no doubt. But then you also see that ethos was different. The Sita become bitter. No, she accepted it. And the proof that she accepted is that she did not poison her sons' minds about their father. So the fact that Draupadi, there is no, at least from what I have read the Mahabharata and what I have talked with others also, there are incidents when Draupadi does get angry with Yudhishthira especially. But it's not that there is like a permanent breakage in that relationship. That does not happen. So, in fact, Duryodhana tries to play husband against wife in the middle of the gambling match. So Yudhishthira says that. So, Draupadi argues that if Yudhishthira had already gambled himself, then how can he gamble me? Then she asks this question, but nobody answers. So then Duryodhana says, if you, O Panchali, agree or state that Yudhishthira is considered Dharmaraj,
has done adharma by gambling you, then I will release it and return your entire kingdom to you. So he basically tries to play husband against wife.
Who says that?
Duryodhana says that to Draupadi. If you say that Yudhishthira is adharma, and Draupadi's reply is that Yudhishthira didn't want to play this gambling match at all. It was, let those who compelled him to play this gambling match decide whether me being gambled was ethical or not. She stayed with her husband at that point. Later on in the forest, she does just question. She says, "How could you do this? How could you gamble so much?" And Yudhishthira is not, he doesn't go about justifying. He says, "I did get carried away in the fever of the gambling, but that fever was not out of greed." The first thing when Yudhishthira, actually we should be talking about Yudhishthira later, but since you have got this question, when Yudhishthira comes into the gambling area, first thing he says to Duryodhana is, "Why do you want to take away from me the wealth with which I will be serving the Brahmanas? I will be serving dharma. I will be serving society. I am not trying to steal anything. This is the game. If you don't want to play, don't play." And that's his constant resort. If you don't want to play, don't play. But then Yudhishthira feels constrained by the fact that Dhritarashtra has called him through Vidura. So it's like a double pressure. He has to say no to two elders. So he keeps gambling. So his hope is that he thinks that my cause is right. I am virtuous. So he loses one bet and he thinks, "Oh, I'll win at least the next one. That I am well intentioned. I want to use this wealth for a good purpose. Surely I won't lose this. Surely I won't lose this. Surely I won't lose this." Like that he thinks, and he keeps losing everything. So it's not so much greed as you could say it is a misconceived faith. That because I am a good person, this cannot happen to me. This should not happen to me. See, the world is a ruthless place. And sometimes we can say that the good intentions are not a substitute for good intelligence. So I know one devotee who was in some country, he invested money he had got money for building a temple, something like that. He invested money there in stocks. And then he lost that money, he took some more money and invested that, he took some other money and invested that. He said, "I'm doing this for Krishna. I won't lose this money. Krishna won't let this money be lost." No, it doesn't work like that. Just because we have good intentions doesn't mean that we can get away without good intentions. It's like saying somebody throws us, there is this bullfighters, there is wild bulls that come in. There's a wild bull and somebody puts a red cloth on us, around us and throws us into a bull pit. And instead of running out of the bull pit, we say, "Hey, oh bull, I'm a vegetarian." It's good to be a vegetarian, but that bull is not going to care whether you are a vegetarian. So I think it is a harsh lesson. And to his credit, Yudhishthira acknowledges that. I got carried away. His carried away was not by the greed of gambling to win something, but it was more like a misconceived faith. And again, to his credit, he learns the lesson. See, after the period of exile gets over, at that time, when the Pandavas are expected to be given their kingdom back, so Dhritarashtra sends a message through Sanjay. And he says, "I offer my best wishes to you." And he says that everything in this world is temporary. Ultimately, every householder has to renounce their household. Every grahastha has to take vanaprastha. He says, "You are so blessed that in your youth itself you have taken vanaprastha. For a kingdom that you will eventually have to renounce, why do you want to fight a bloody war? Why do you want to kill your own relatives? Just stay peaceful where you are." So he's using, what is this? There's this word called rationalize. Now rationalize, what happens is, when we rationalize, we tell rational lies. So we rationalize and we tell rational lies. So we use our intelligence to try to come up with false arguments. Say if a husband has promised his wife, I stop smoking. And the wife comes into the room and sees the husband is smoking. Why are you smoking? No, I was not smoking. Actually the room was very cold, I wanted to make it warm for you. So the idea is, so this is what Dhritarashtra is doing. And Yudhishthira does not fall for that bluff. Yudhishthira said, he sends a message back through Sanjay. Sanjay is sending a message. He said that I do not want a war at all. I have not even expressed anything about a war. He says there was an agreement that was made in your presence, in a ganging match that you invited us to. And we have honored our part of the agreement. All that we are asking you is that you honor your part of the agreement. So sometimes we have to learn the hard way. So yes, it is. So did justice happen to her? Not really. But then life is unfair in many ways. We could say did justice happen to Arjuna? He lost. All the Pandavas lost their sons. So Arjuna lost. Abhimanyu, who was especially dear to all of them, who was even Krishna's nephew. So it's, yes, I think life is unfair to everyone in the games. And it is one of the lessons of the scriptures is that, how do we face adversity with dignity? Adversity will come upon everyone, no matter who we are and how good we are or how powerful we are. So, Ram faces adversity, Sita faces adversity, Yudhishthira faces adversity, and Draupadi faces adversity. So, sometimes justice we don't get it in this world at all.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I know that many of you have questions. Sorry, Prabhu, I took the mic from you. Many of you have questions. But let us, I was just thinking on one aspect. How many people get an opportunity to ask these questions and even hear answers? Just think about it, I have spent 48 years of my life. Past 5 years, I don't know why I was born, but at least some questions came. But never got an opportunity to get an answer. Never got an opportunity to get an answer. And how many have the audacity to even have the confidence that answer is there, right? And answers at different levels. Prabhuji and Mataji, we are very fortunate. We are very fortunate. I don't know whether or not our answer has 100% convinced us, but our answer has come. Now we have to dwell into it, and maybe we can further dwell into it and further come back and clarify. Your opportunity still remains. And when the questions are answered, our faith increases. And the whole purpose sadhus come is to increase their faith that Krishna is there. Right? That's the whole point. So Prabhuji is here for the next 9 days. Not less, I don't exact calculation, I don't know. But yeah, more than that. So Prabhuji is here for a reason. Right? He is here to tell us what Krishna has planned for us to know. And he is telling it through Mahabharata series. Mahabharata sometimes is looked at like a story, like a story or people like stories. Sometimes they probably too much philosophy, but that's different way in which Prabhuji is explaining. In the next few days, Monday morning, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and the next Monday, and the next Sunday also, 2nd of February, Prabhuji is going to continue this Mahabharata series, right? And don't think your answers are not given yet, because Prabhuji is going to discuss about Arjuna, especially in detail, for what we have known about Bhishma till now, Bhishma there. Same way about Arjuna, about Ashwatthama, about Karna, Duryodhana, right? So ultimately, again, as Prabhuji said, what are we going to get lessons out of all of this, right? So don't miss these sessions. Is all I'm saying. This 1 week may or may not come, or this 1 week. 1 week is specifically designed for each one of us who is brought here somehow in this whole lifetime. We have been brought here to Gachibowli and we are assembling here to hear these answers. And I would personally say, let's not question to question, right? Let's question to actually get an answer. So, let's be eager to get that answer, and let's only question those things which are actually needed for our life. Right? Srila Prabhupada also did not answer some types of questions. I heard that from devotees. He just looked at the another person for the next question. Because the question was not needed to be answered by him. And for the matter, that question wouldn't have changed that person's life. Right? So why don't we actually jot down, that's a homework for all of you, in the next 6 or 7 days, the questions which are going to change us and make us stand more rounds, make us become more dedicated and more, surrendered to Srila Prabhupada's mission, right? So let's have those questions in relation to Mahabharata designed in that way, which will actually make a difference to us, right? Because it shouldn't happen that, we have such a senior sadhu here. I know we did word takeaway, I know we did some question asked, but it's not entertainment. Everything is coming for a reason. It might feel a little nice, but let's come back to that spirit tomorrow and day after and furthermore. And let's thank Prabhuji for answering our questions so nicely and yet being so enthusiastic to continue tomorrow morning. Thank you. Let's thank you. 3 Lord Haribo. And here is one amazing, very beautiful book, right, written by Prabhuji, Gita for a CEO. It's 450 rupees for price, which can make you a CEO. Rather, will keep you as a CEO. So, Prabhuji is here to sign this. You can take, so many of you already taken, but you can take and you can gift it to your friends. I have gifted it to my boss. Right? He liked it. Just a feeling of the book itself, it's printed by HarperCollins, very, very professionally done. And the font and everything. It's a great gift you want to give on anybody's birthday. Right? So why don't you get it signed? When I gave it to my boss, my customer actually, I showed his name because I got his name also written by Prabhuji, Jai Narayan. And I told, why don't you come? Actually, he was supposed to come here today, but he kind of missed it out. He said tomorrow morning he might come. But it can be a great gift also. What can you buy for that kind of price? And you also have this Gita Daily, the good thought from Gita on a daily basis when you start your work or when you end your work. Whichever time you choose to read it. So this is 400 rupees, this is 450 rupees. Please go ahead. Anup Prabhu is sitting behind. He is the devotee. Yeah. So he has the books and he has the scanner code and all the payments. Quickly you can get your book, get it signed by Prabhuji. And let's assemble here tomorrow morning with the same enthusiasm. Tomorrow is the discussion about Arjuna. Hari Bol. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Namaste Narasimha.